The 2026 NFL trade deadline is officially up, and my goodness, this was a crazy trade deadline. So in this video, I will be going over every single major move that happened at the trade deadline, giving you guys my reaction, my opinions, and what this means for the future. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. And we are going to begin with the Indianapolis Colts making a trade for none other than Sauce Gardner. This was not on my radar. I really thought Sauce Gardner was going to spend most of his career with the New York Jets, at least most of his prime there. For him to get traded when he's only 25 years old and just signed a new contract extension and is having a really good year is kind of shocking to me. Now, I think this makes sense for both sides. We're going to focus here on the Colts side of things first. For the Colts, you are a really great football team with one of the best offenses in the NFL. It just feels like you're maybe missing one or two pieces on the defensive side of things. And so what do? You go and trade for one of the best corners in the NFL. Now, it was expensive. You gave up 2 first-round picks and a really good receiver in Adonai Mitchell that has a lot of talent. But when you are in a win-now window, I think it makes a lot of sense to go all in on a big name and a big fish in Sauce Gardner. Sauce is, truly speaking, one of the best corners out there. Via PFF, he's only given up 10 receptions, has a 68.7 coverage grade, an 80.9 run defense grade. You go back to 2023, he had a 90.8 coverage grade, and his rookie season, a 90.0 coverage grade. I know PFF is not like the greatest thing of all time, but it does give you a good indicator as to how good a player is, and Sauce is a really freaking good player. He was just on one of the worst defenses in the league this year in, of course, New York, and he was playing next to guys that just were not as good as what he is. Now he's going to a team in Indianapolis that's going to have a healthy Charvarius Ward at some point, Kenny Moore, one of the best nickels in the NFL, and Cam Bynum. Now you have Sauce Gardner there too. This Colts defense is still not like fully finished. I would like to see maybe another pass rusher or maybe a linebacker, but that's something you could look at in the offseason. I think for now, when you look at the NFL landscape, I think this Colts team is firmly one of the top contenders to win a Super Bowl this year, which how awesome of that is that for Sauce Gardner? Going from one of the worst teams to now an actual contending team, that's pretty freaking cool. Now for the Jets side of things, look, we're going to talk about another Jets trade here in a little bit where I'll go a bit more deeper into what the Jets future looks like. But man, you get 2 first-round picks and a nice receiving prospect in Adonai Mitchell that I actually think could be your wide receiver too the second he lands in New York. We'll start off with Mitchell because I just kind of want to talk about the player really quickly. You guys can see I'm a Texas flag. I was a big fan of the prospect of Adonai Mitchell. I think he's one of the most nuanced route runners. He just has some really bad inconsistency issues, and he's a little bit, he doesn't have that sense of urgency. Now he gets to play next to Garrett Wilson, and I think he's going to have an expanded role. He'll get more opportunities. He might find a better consistent role. I think this is a much better situation in New York than it was in the Indianapolis Colts. Because at Indianapolis, you didn't really have time to develop. You were also stuck behind Michael Pittman Jr., Pierce, Josh Downs, and all those guys. And then you also threw Jonathan Taylor having a career year, Tyler Warren being awesome. It just really limited the productivity Adonai Mitchell could have. Now going to the Jets, he's going to have a nice role there. The 2 first-round picks are really interesting. Now, I think the Colts are going to be really good the next 2 years, so more than likely, these are going to be picks that are in the back half of round 1. But a first-round pick is a first-round pick. And for a Jets team that is building towards the future, committing to this rebuild, to me, makes a lot of sense. You have a new head coach. You have a new young offensive line. You have some young pieces here and there. Continue to get younger. Sauce Gardner was only 25. I kind of think he was the one guy that I would have kept, but getting 2 first-round picks I think is totally worthwhile. So I like the move for both sides. I definitely think the Colts got the better end of it, but I really do like what the Jets got here. Next up, let's talk about Jakobi Meyers going to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 4th and a 6th-round pick. So it came out like right before the season started that all of a sudden Jakobi Meyers wanted a trade. He wanted to go elsewhere because he wanted to get paid, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. Now, of course, he didn't get traded. He ended up playing, and for the most part, he's been pretty good for the Las Vegas Raiders, albeit he hasn't been, their number 1 guy. He's been more like their number 2 with Trey Tucker playing well, and, now they're getting Bowers back, so Bowers will, take over that number 1 role. But Myers has been a really consistent player his whole career. Now he goes to Jacksonville where, look, Jacksonville's without Travis Hunter for a little while, and Brian Thomas hasn't been very good this year. We actually heard that they were potentially fielding some trade offers for him, which I think is a little bit too early. I just don't agree with that right now. But if you truly don't think he fits your offense, getting a guy like Jakobi Meyers, pairing him up with Travis Hunter, I think that's totally fine. Maybe this offseason they look to move off of Brian Thomas. Again, I think it's too early, but if you keep Brian Thomas, you have BTJ, Travis Hunter, maybe you move him more to a full-time corner, and then Jacoby Myers takes over as that number 2 receiver. I think this makes some sense. I was a little bit surprised that Jacksonville was buying receiver right now, but with their injuries, with where the division's at, with what the playoffs look like in the AFC, I think making a quote-unquote win-now move makes a bit of sense. As for the Raiders, you really don't get much out of this. You get a couple draft picks, but I think more importantly, you just get off the contract that is Jacoby Myers. You clearly didn't want to pay him, so getting some draft capital in return, I guess, why not? It works out. Really quickly, we'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys trading a 7th round pick. In return, they get Logan Wilson. Logan Wilson has been obviously on this Bengals team for a few years now. He's 29 years old. He's been a reliable starter for this team until this year. This year, he just hasn't been that great. He's a good run defender, but he's definitely not great in coverage. This year, he was not very good. So he kind of had his role diminished. He still made some plays, but it was clear he wanted to go elsewhere. He actually requested a trade. For Dallas, this is the ultimate here. Just take a 7th round pick. 90% of times, 7th round picks don't really pan out. So to get a win now guy when you're in a win now window, I think it makes some sense. You can see via PFF, this year has not been great. 58.1 run defense grade, 48.8 coverage grade. But in years past, this is 2024. He had a run defense grade of 90.0, a 57.0 coverage grade, a 72.4 overall grade. You look at 2023, 66.5 run defense grade with 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And you just keep going. 2022, some good grades. So for Dallas, you're basically giving up a 7th round pick for potentially a starter, and finally Kenneth Murray and Shamar James can get off the field because now you're going to have Logan Wilson and DeMarvin Overshown. Makes a lot of sense. We'll stick with the Dallas Cowboys because the Dallas Cowboys have made a trade for none other than Quinnen Williams. Now I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one because with this move being made and of course the Sauce Gardner moves, this is really the bulk of what this trade deadline was. This was the Jets committing to a rebuild, and this was the Dallas Cowboys committing to winning right now. Let's start off with the Cowboys because this will be a little bit quicker. When I get to the Jets, we'll go into a lot of detail about what they could do. For the Dallas Cowboys, look, you have a 30-year-old quarterback. You have a guy in CeeDee Lamb who's going to get paid. You're probably going to franchise George Pickens. You are in a win now window. You have probably a window that's about 3 to 4 years wide. Making a move for Quinnen Williams when you already have some extra draft capital from the Micah Parsons trade, I think makes some sense. Now, the actual trade details, they gave up a 2nd round pick this year, which that's a good value right there. 2nd round picks are valuable, but you already have a 1st round pick in round 1, so that 2nd round pick was a little bit more expendable. You also gave up a 1st round pick next year. Now, the 2027 pick actually has a bit of a clause into it. I do believe the Jets will be getting the higher pick of either the Dallas Cowboys or the Green Bay Packers. So if Dallas has a great year and they make the playoffs and Green Bay for whatever reason sucks, then the Jets would get the Packers pick. But if the Cowboys are really bad and the Packers are really good, then the Jets will get the Cowboys 2027 1st round pick. I think that's just smart business for the Jets. Make sure you get the higher value there. And I think for Dallas, if it means getting Quinnen Williams, sure, why not? The Cowboys also get off Mozzie Smith, which I think is actually a huge win for Dallas. We'll see if he can resurrect his career in New York. I think it's a good swing for the Jets. He was a 1st round pick and it just hasn't worked in Dallas. Maybe in a new system, a new scheme, they can get something out of him. Now for the Dallas Cowboys, look, Quinnen Williams is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. It's him, Dexter Lawrence, Chris Jones, and that's really about it. It's those guys who are in the upper echelon. And there was actually some rumors coming out that the Dallas Cowboys were trying to trade Micah Parsons to the Jets and to get in return Quinnen Williams, which, you know, would have actually probably been a really good move for the Dallas Cowboys at the time, but that of course didn't work out because I guess the Jets didn't have the money for it, which, I mean, it's Micah freaking Parsons. You make the money if you can get him, but I get it. Edge was not their biggest of needs. Dallas now, though, look, you got a 1st round pick this year for Micah Parsons. Essentially, that's kind of what you got. And I guess Kenny Clark, he's fine. And Quinnen Williams. So when you kind of look at it, for Micah Parsons, they got a ton of extensions on this team. Some have worked out, some not so much. I'm looking at you, Deron Bland, who got shook out of his boots by Marvin Harrison. Just completely killed that guy. But when you look at the trade now, the Cowboys gave up Micah Parsons. In return, they get Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, a ton of extensions, and still a little bit more cap flexibility moving forward. I kind of think Dallas might have won the trade in some ways, looking back on it now with hindsight. Now, in reality, Dallas is in a bit of a hole. They're 3-5-1. The NFC is going to be really tough to get in right now. So unless Dallas goes on a crazy run, I just don't see it. I think this secondary is multiple pieces away, so I just don't think they're going to be a great team this year. But when you look at the team looking into next year, Quinnen Williams is already under contract, so he'll be here next year. Your run defense looks to be be really good for the remainder of this year and for next year. You already have 2 first-round picks to potentially go after a safety or a corner, and we're starting to see Donovan Ezraku really turn up as a pass rusher. For the Cowboys, you look at it and you say, we think we have a good offense. We already have Dak. We have CD. We're probably going to franchise tag George Pickens. We will rework this offensive line because I think they're going to have to get off Terrence Steele. But they're going to be set on the offensive end. They should be really good on that side yet again, as long as they can stay healthy. But defensively, you're going to have an improved Donovan Ezraku, Kenny Clark, Osa Odigizua, and Quinnen Williams all in the middle. That's a really good rotation. We'll see who can become that second pass rusher. Maybe you draft one this year, or maybe you look into, maybe Marshawn Nealon, maybe you re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. I'm not sure yet. Your linebackers are probably going to be, we'll see if Logan Wilson works out for Dallas. Maybe it's Logan Wilson and DeMarvion Overshown, or maybe you draft like an Arvell Reese to pair up with DeMarvion Overshown. That could be nice. Secondary's all up in the air. The only thing I know is that Savone Ravel has a chance to get some reps, and Deron Bland will probably be your cornerback too. So I look at this for Dallas and I say, I think Dallas is heading in the right direction. Obviously, this year it's kind of a wash already. You're 3-5-1 unless you go on a crazy stretch of winning out, which is going to be very difficult with this secondary. But for now, I think they're in a really good spot moving forward to next year. Now, on the Jets side of things, getting rid of Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, that's got to suck. That's got to hurt, because these are guys who have been on your team the past few years and have been really good, productive players, some of the best players in their position. Giving them up is tough. But that's what happens when you get good players, but you don't surround those good players with other good players too. Like Quinnen has been on a defense the past few years that has just not had players to support him. It's been him and kind of that's it, especially in the interior. So this is what happens. Now you get additional draft capital. You get a second-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year. And, we'll see if Mozzie Smith can develop. He was a former first-round pick. But I now look at this Jets team and I say, you have your own picks next year and this year, which are going to be very high value picks, but potentially having the number 1 overall pick this year and maybe even next year. You're going to have 2 Indianapolis Colts picks this year and next year. You're going to have an additional second-round pick this year from the Dallas Cowboys, a pick that could be somewhere in the 40s. And then you're going to have the Dallas Cowboys / the Green Bay Packers pick the following year in 2027. So when you look at this Jets team, I think they have what? Would that be 5 first-round picks the next 2 years and an additional second-round pick that is almost a first-rounder? This is a Jets team that really quickly could turn it around. But huge asterisk, though. They got to hit on the picks. The Jets are a team that they're not a bad draft team. They're definitely not horrendous at it. Of course, we'll see what the GM looks like. We'll see if Aaron Glenn stays. It could be a whole new staff and a whole new bunch of pieces. We'll have to wait and see. I think they'll probably, play this one out, which is kind of risky, but I think that's what they'll do. But if they hit on their picks this year and they hit on their picks next year, we could see a pretty quick turnaround and talk about the Jets having a really bright future. I think there's still a few moves to be made. I think for starters, the question right now is, do they take a quarterback this year or do they wait till 2027 to go all in on a quarterback the year after? And frankly, I think that's a bit of a risky move, but in 2027, there could be some really good quarterbacks that come out. Talking Dylan Raiola, we'll see if Arch Manning develops. I think guys like Lenore Sellers could come back. Maybe even Dante Moore comes back to college. He might be in 2027. And of course, guys are going to come out of nowhere and be really good out of nowhere. So 2027 could be a really good quarterback draft class, or you can just take one this year to secure it right away. And again, Fernando Mendoza, maybe Dante Moore goes pro, Ty Simpson, one of those guys, maybe that's your franchise quarterback right there. And in addition to that, you also just traded for Adonai Mitchell, so I think you feel okay about your receivers for now. Offensively speaking, we'll see what happens with the running back room, but you might have a rookie quarterback, Adonai Mitchell, Garrett Wilson, a young offensive line, and you can start to rework this defense because you're going to have 4 other first-round picks to pick and choose what you want. You can kind of go best player available. Let's say hypothetically this year they end up with the number 1 pick, or it could be number 2 or 3. They get their pick of the litter at quarterback. Let's just say, for conversation's sake, they go Fernando Mendoza, right? Fernando Mendoza is now their franchise quarterback. Then you also have the Colts pick, which you can then turn around and say, well, maybe Carnell Tate falls, or maybe you go Denzel Boston, and now you have a nice trio of receivers. Or you might say, we'll just take the best available corner, maybe a Colton Hood, maybe Jermon McCoy goes a little bit later than expected. You just go best player available in whatever position of need. Then the year after, you have 3 first-round picks to shore up whatever other issues you have. Your own pick probably will be a high draft pick. The Cowboys pick could be a high draft pick, and that Colts pick, you just never know. The Colts could be really good, win a Super Bowl, so the pick's not that valuable, or they can completely miss the playoffs and maybe they fall apart and that pick looks really, really good. So 5 first-round picks, you have to hit on them. You have to hit on these picks. This is the first time where I feel like Jets fans might actually have a little bit of some hope. With the Sauce Gardner trade, with the Quinnen Williams trade, you're hitting the reset button. Now is the time, more so than ever, to finally hit and make the right moves. Now, really quickly, let's talk about some of the more underrated trades. The Bears are trading for Browns pass rusher Joey Tryon-Shoyinka. Shoyinka's been in the league now for a few years, and this year just hasn't really been all that great. With Myles Garrett being the starter, Isaiah McGuire, he hasn't really had a ton of opportunities this year. He's been kind of under the radar. This year, only 4 solo tackles, has only played 31 total snaps. This is all via PFF. But now the Bears are trading for him. I think this is definitely a guy who you're looking as like a second pass rusher, more, is a rotational guy. He's not going to start for this team. He's had good years in the past. You look at 2023, we had a 69.0 pass rush grade. Nice. 5 sacks, 30 solo tackles, and he played a decent amount of snaps, and that was with the Buccaneers, who were a pretty good team those years. So clearly there's something there. I wouldn't be too surprised if he has a nice little role in Chicago. The next one is the Saints trading away Rashid Shaheed to the Seattle Seahawks for a 4th and a 5th round pick. I love this move for the Seattle Seahawks. Outside of JSN, man, this receiving core is pretty rough. Now that Cooper Kupp's been banged up, you do have Torrey Horton, who's been pretty good for this team, but they need something else. They need somebody not named JSN to be able to open up this offense. That's not to say they can't be successful just targeting JSN, but having that other option, I think would be very nice. And I think Rashid Shaheed makes a ton of sense for this team. Rashid is a burner. Now, he's been unfortunately not able to stay healthy for a lot of his career, but this year he has been able to stay healthy and he's playing pretty well. You can see the numbers. This year he has 44 receptions for just under 500 yards and 2 touchdowns. You can see injuries have been an issue, especially last year. But when he has been healthy, this is a big playmaker. This is a guy that wins downfield. He really opens up the offense. And you guys have heard me the entire offseason. I talked about the Seahawks. I said they're going to work a lot in the intermediate, a lot in the underneath with guys like Cooper Kupp and JSN. And that's for the most part what they have been doing. Now, JSN's been really good down the field, but that's what they've been doing. It's very much methodical drives, rely on the run, be as balanced as possible, and win with JSN and some of these other guys. Now, when you add Rashid Shaheed, it really opens up this offense a lot more because this guy can absolutely fly down the field, and he's not just a down the field burner. He can win in the intermediate. He can win in the underneath. He's a really good player. Now, is he a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player? No, but you didn't trade for him like he was. You gave up a 4th and a 5th round pick. Decent value. Of course, those are good draft picks to have in the middle of the draft, but still, for a guy in Rashid Shaheed who's going to open up this offense, I like this move a lot for Seattle. For the Saints, I think it makes some sense. Just get as much draft capital as possible. He's not young anymore, so it makes some sense to go ahead and just start building towards the future. I want to cover some moves that happened before the trade deadline. This one happened yesterday. The Ravens are trading for Titans edge Draymond Jones, sending a conditional 5th round pick. I like this move for the Baltimore Ravens. They've been really bad at getting after the quarterback this year, and while Draymond Jones is not going to get you 15 sacks a season, he will get you a couple of sacks and be pretty decent against the run. This year for Seattle, a 67.5 pass rush grade, a 59.8 run defense grade, has 5 sacks on the season. You look at 2024, 66.0 pass rush grade, had 3 sacks. 2023, 5 sacks, 65.1. 2022, he had 7 sacks, 67.3. You get my point. This is somebody that can fit in a variety of different ways. He can come off the edge. You can play within the 3-4. I think he's just a really good scheme fit. And of course, look, when he was with the Seattle Seahawks fitting into their system, he played for the Tennessee Titans. The Titans just are not in a situation to try and win now. For a team in Baltimore that's trying to put it together, trying to make a big, push towards the end of the season, I think this move makes some sense. You don't trade a whole bunch. You get a really good player. I like the move a lot. Then there's the Dolphins trading away star pass rusher Jalen Phillips to the Eagles for a 3rd round pick. Phillips, he came out the scene playing really well, and then of course he had the Achilles injury, and that's kind of been the MO for him. When he's been healthy, he's been pretty freaking good, but when he's been injured, it's been really tough to have him on your team. But you can see this year, look, he's still a really good pass rusher. 77.8 pass rush grade with 3 sacks. Last year in 2024, prior to the injury, 65.2 pass rush grade. 2023 had 7 sacks. You can see these are really good grades. 2022, look at these grades, 89.8 with 9 sacks. You get the point. This is a really good pass rusher. Now, is he going to be a 3-down guy? Probably for Philadelphia. You do have Nolan Smith, who's been really good for you, and you, of course, have Jalen Carter and all those guys up the middle, but they've been kind of lacking with depth in that position. Trading a 3rd round pick, which is a day 2 pick, that's decent value, but getting a guy like Jalen Phillips, who's only 26 years old, has been really productive throughout his career, still a really good player, I think it makes a ton of sense. The injuries have piled up, and that's always going to be the concern with him. Can he stay healthy? But if he can manage to stay healthy, this is a really good swing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia is trying to win now. Their window's open for the next couple years. Phillips is still young. He can be a part of this window, and he can help the team win now. I think this is just a win now trade for both sides. For Miami, you're building towards the future. You're probably going to get off him anyways because his contract is up at the end of the season. We'll see if Philadelphia pays or not. It's kind of going to be based off his performance. But for Miami, you get off the contract and you get a third-round pick. I think it's a win-win for both sides. So before we end the video, I did want to briefly cover some players that did not get traded. We'll start off with Breece Hall. I'm a little surprised he didn't get traded. I thought there'd be a lot of teams that would want to go out there and make a play or a move to get Breece Hall. I'm looking at you, Kansas City, or even Chicago to an extent. I think Breece Hall is a really good player that just has not been in a good situation in New York. So for him not to get traded, I am a little surprised with. I do wonder maybe there's some comp pick situations going on here. If maybe the Jets are, pricing him a little bit too high at a third-round pick, and if it doesn't work out, if he becomes a free agent and he goes elsewhere, you get a comp pick that's around a 4th or 5th round pick. I wonder if that's the case here. I also think possibly the Chiefs offered him, and then they only offered a 4th round pick, and the Jets said, no, we're good. I'm also shocked with Trey Hendrickson not getting traded. I really thought he'd be off the team. The Bengals clearly are not going to commit to him long-term, at least for right now. We'll see if that changes. But I would think that a team like San Francisco or a team maybe like Chicago, a team that needs extra help in the pass rushing department, would be interested in his services. He's a great player who is looking for a contract. If he doesn't work out, you can just get off the deal. I would be surprised if the Bengals did not get an offer for at least a 2nd or 3rd round pick. In return, you get Trey Hendrickson. I think that would have made sense. The Bengals are keeping a guy that's just not going to be on the team probably after this year. Even if they offer him a contract, I think he might go elsewhere because he probably feels disrespected by ownership. Chris Olave stays with the New Orleans Saints. This one isn't as shocking. I would have liked to have seen him go elsewhere, but he's still a relatively young player and he's been healthy this year. So maybe the Saints' philosophy is we're going to take a quarterback next year and then give him a receiver in Chris Olave to keep this offense afloat. We also didn't see Kirk Cousins get traded. That one makes some sense. His contract was just way too high. That was going to be very difficult to get a deal done. Calvin Ridley still on the Tennessee Titans. I just think he doesn't have that much of a market. This is probably a scenario where his contract's too high. He's already 31 years old and is clearly not the same guy he used to be when he was with Atlanta. Rick Woolen of the Seattle Seahawks is still a Seahawk. I thought this was going to be a guy that potentially had a market because he's not played well for Seattle, and maybe a team that needs cornerback help like a Dallas or somebody like that could make a move for Tariq Woolen, but clearly didn't work out. He's also been playing a little bit better for the Seahawks lately, so maybe that's why they kept him around. Some other names too: Mark Andrews still on the team, Alontae Taylor, some of the tight ends, a bunch of different names that are still on their teams. All in all, a really fun trade deadline. The New York Jets blow it up. A lot of things interesting happening today. You guys let me know in the comment section below. What trade was your favorite? Was this a good trade deadline? Was this boring? Did your team make any moves? What was good? What was bad? Tell me in the comments below. Hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.